Welcome back, guys. We are in the very final moments of building this truck out. The owner's coming to pick it up today. Once again, this is Southern Style Off-Road, and we're glad to have you with us. We're going to go over a full rendition of everything that we've done on this truck. First and foremost, we made custom front and rear bumpers. This is a it's all 3/16 steel. We've got some nice bull bar protection around there. We like the lower roof look. We thought it really flowed nicely without, impeding any of the driving lights or anything like that. He had a specific winch that he wanted to use, so he had to accommodate for that. But overall, we think he gave it a nice, clean. A nice, clean look all the way around. One of the bigger things that he had us do was a completely custom suspension from Slinky Off-Road. They are in Australia, but they have Icon make all of their stuff, and so that honestly took a good week of work because we had to mill out lower control arms, we had to get custom drive shafts, we had to move the front axle forward 2 inches. It was quite the deal, but I'm telling you what, whenever he starts wheeling this thing, he's going to see all the benefits of that. So here's a nice little touch. We rhino lined the entire the entire fender liner, because for some reason Lexus at the time wanted that body colored. It looked terrible, so we went ahead and rhino lined that whole thing. Little touches like that, we went through the entire truck as if it was my own, and I tried to fix every little thing that I could. Rear bumper is a standard single swing arm, but we have this trick little latch that we designed that allows for easy opening and closing, and you can see it's going to have a shop out there. So it's a very large swing arm. The idea with this molly panel here is that you'll be able to bolt anything to anywhere. We have some high lift mounts that you can move anywhere, of course. In the future, he'll be able to bolt a camp table inside of here and fold it up, so he'll be able to drop it down. And this is probably going to be a style that you're going to see from a lot of our products, which is kind of the good thing about working on trucks like this, because we have a chance to come up with new ideas and new solutions that didn't exist before. So, and as you can see, it is incredibly strong, one of the strongest we've made. I mean, for the outside, it's kind of hard to tell, but a lot of the work happened underneath the truck. I wish we could put it on the lift, and we might do that later so you can see the full effect. But let's take a look at the interior too, because they did a lot of work in there as well. The owner previously brought this to us with the wrap on it, and he had this leather done. But we redid all of the switches. We did these gauges for his supercharger. By the way, this is a 6-liter Magnuson supercharged V8, and it freaking rips. So we have our vacuum and boost gauge here. We have an AFR gauge, so we can make sure his motor's running healthily at all times. We gave him some switches here for all of his lights all the way around the truck. And what's nifty about these is it's a remote, so you can turn them all on and off from right there. A lot of work went on behind the dash because a lot of his stuff wasn't working. For instance, little things that you take for granted in a modern vehicle, like when you put it in reverse, your reverse lights come on and your camera does. Well, whenever you swap a Chevy motor into a Lexus, it no longer has that ability to tell it when it's in reverse and when it's not. So we had to come up with a custom ramp and momentary switch that we welded down inside of the shift tray, so that when it actually goes into reverse, we have our own switch to tell everything to turn on again. So little things like that is what we worked on that are kind of hard to see, and for most people, be like, well, yeah, of course it should do that. But if it doesn't do that from the get-go, it becomes quite the technical challenge. When we got the truck, the battery terminal was a single 3-inch post with every one of these wires stacked up on top of it. It's just horrible looking. So what we did is we ordered a couple of these bad boys to get the larger cables, the electricity they need, and then we had this little bus fuse. I mean, not a bus fuse, just a bus panel to provide power to all the other electronics. This is that, it's trigger switch, very good. Trigger accessory control system, very good trigger, y'all nailed it. I especially like this feature here because this is the remote version of it, but it also has manual buttons, so you can still turn on your lights even if you don't have your remote for some reason, which is very nifty. Came with all very good wires and everything like that. I made a custom intake for this thing because back in the day when this thing had the straight 6, it was producing about 190 horsepower, and this little dealio was just fine for that. But whenever you're cranking out more than 500 horsepower, this intake was really restricted to the supercharger. But the client also really wanted the snorkel. I tried to talk him out of it, saying that it was going to restrict power, which it does. About 50 horsepower, if you can, real horsepower, if you can believe that. But this is the best compromise that I could come up with. This is a large K&N filter inside of a sealed K&N, enclosure that I have directly hooked into the snorkel. If he wants to, we have another much larger filter here that he can simply use in place of this if he wants to get the most horsepower that he can. But I would just leave it the way it is right there. We also install, come around here, we also install some beautiful headers to get that exhaust gas out of there. Stainless steel, they look fantastic, which meant that we had to redo the entire exhaust too. The exhaust itself had some problems because the previous guys that we got this truck from, they just didn't cross all the T's and dot all their I's. So the drive shaft in the front could not be installed with the way that they had run the exhaust, so we had to rerun the exhaust, get it working so it could get installed, that drive shaft could get installed in the front, and it's worked out well so far. In the future, if he gets more power to this motor, he's going to want to change out his drive shaft, so we tried to provide for that ability as well, give him enough room as possible. We did a lot of work on the motor itself, because when he brought it to us, it's a 6-liter, it's heavily modified, crankshaft, pistons, rods, the whole deal. And he's got the supercharger on there. It's a 1.9-liter supercharger. And so when he brought it in, he was basically making 0 boost and 270 horsepower, which is, I mean, I'm sure you know V8s alone make that much. So with the supercharger on top, it should have been spooling up a lot more. So it was quite some time of me talking to experts all over the country, Magnuson, the builders of the motor, our local LS expert here. And basically we found out that this motor is just too much. It can flow too much air, and all the exhaust work that we did actually hurt because it's not allowing boost to build. Like, there's no back pressure. But in the grand scheme of things, you want that exhaust out of there. The real solution for this particular issue is to get a larger supercharger, probably a 2.3 or something like that, or even a turbo. But it is what it is right now. We were finally able to get it pulleyed down. We got a smaller pulley for the supercharger, and we're making it about 4.5 to 5 psi boost right now, which is good for 400 wheel horsepower. So I mean, this sucker scoots. It's not the monster that he thought it would be just yet, but there's room to go. So, you know, improvement. This is Slinky's proprietary valving, links, and everything like that, but Icon builds them. And with this Slinky kit, we ended up replacing panhard bar, essentially everything under here except for the axle got replaced. Every bushing, every hub, every bearing, every brake pad, every U-joint, every single thing on this truck is brand new in every way except for the body and some of the electrical. So when he picks it up today, he's essentially picking up a restored brand new vehicle, and I'm excited about it. So if you check these out here, these are some of the brackets and braces we had to add in, which actually moved this front axle forward. I think it was close to 2 inches, to give us room for larger tires and also to fit these giant springs in there. What else we got? We got adjustable panhard in the back. Here's a look at the exhaust that we had to custom make here. Come on, move that over here. And you can see the difficulty we had with back here. The difficulty we had with running this exhaust between the skid plate and the transfer case there. If there was one last thing I'd do to this truck, it would be to add catalytic converters on it. A, that'll help him build boost because it'll have that little bit of restriction. B, he won't come out smelling like drag fuel at the racetrack when he goes to his 9 a.m. meeting on Mondays, which is a big, to me, is a big problem for a daily driver. So I would suggest those few things. We didn't really get clearance to do that, but if it was me, that was the last thing I would do. What else? I guess that's pretty much it. We still got sway bars, which it needs because the suspension is kind of flexy, obviously. What we had to do for this custom suspension is we had to actually mill the lower control arms out because of the amount of droop that it had. It was going to contact the steering link here. Or is that the drag bar? Man, I don't know solid axles that well, but this is the bar that connects the wheels together for steering, whatever you want to call that. So you see, did you look? Put your face here. So we actually had to mill that down. You see it though? You see this one? Yeah. As you can see, if we hadn't milled it down, we would have been right on the cusp of hitting this at full droop. So that was another custom little thing we had to do.